hey, it's Wes, and today it's time to talk about the Sony 70-200 G Master. Now, I don't personally own one of these lenses. I've gone back and forth on whether or not it's worth adding to my arsenal, and we'll get into more about why that is in a minute. The 70-200 G Master is, well, it's a hefty lens. It's a wide aperture 70-200 zoom like any other, and it's about the same size and weight of everyone else's. So it weighs in at 1480 grams, the Nikon 1430, the Canon 1480. It's all around the same place, so you're really not benefiting with the whole size and weight mirrorless mumbo jumbo on this one. You tend to lose all those benefits as soon as you go for longer lenses because your flange distance doesn't really matter that much anymore. Let's start out with the build quality. It's a pretty solid lens. Honestly, it's very similarly solid to the 70-200 f4. It just weighs a lot more. The focus ring, I'm not a big fan of. It feels a little loose. I've actually rented 3 of these in total, and they've all performed about the same. It comes with a locking, removable lens hood, and an adjustable tripod collar. And the tripod foot itself can be fairly easily removed, just like that. I generally shoot without the tripod collar, because I like to run and gun, go handheld. I kind of prefer the design of the tripod collar on the f4 lens, because that allows you to remove the entire collar and totally get that out of the way. I like that. The lens itself is quite weather sealed. We have a gasket O-ring on the back, keep the water out. The f4 does not have that. We have a filter access door at the bottom of the lens hood, and a bunch of switches on the side. Focus switch, focus limiter, steady shot, and steady shot mode. And on the inside of the lens hood, a nice addition, there's a felt liner to reduce any reflections for lens flares. So overall, it's pretty solid, but it doesn't inspire 100% confidence in my hands at least, but I'm giving that a 9 out of 10. Image quality. And that's what people bump up to a 2.8 zoom for most of the time. This is a premium lens with premium quality. It is very sharp, especially for a zoom, and we're going to be seeing some image samples throughout this. If you want to see larger versions of these samples, you can hit the link in the description. Chromatic aberration is very well controlled on this lens. Distortion, also very well controlled. Not usually a big issue on long zooms though. And flare control is good, but not amazing. It tends to keep things under control though. I have shot this under as many circumstances as possible in the amount of time that I've had with this lens on a couple occasions. I have shot a wedding with it, shot sports with it, shot some headshots with it, shot a interesting concept shoot with it, and so I feel like I've gotten the feel for most of the circumstances where image quality will come up on this. So how does the image quality directly compare with this guy? Well, it is just a little bit sharper, not enormously sharper. Flare control is just a little bit better, and that's kind of what's going to get us most of the way through the description of this lens. It's just a little bit better. Overall, there's really nothing to complain about with image quality here. It's 9 out of 10. Image character. This is where I have a couple complaints. It's kind of the risk of a modern lens that once you fix everything, the look kind of becomes a bit uninteresting. And that's how I feel about this lens. Now, full disclosure, I'm more of a prime shooter guy, so I find this lens to be a bit dry, a bit clinical in nature. That might not bother you. Most of the time it doesn't bother me either. The bokeh is smooth, a little bit of cat's eye in the corner, and if you look real close at times, there is still a tiny bit of onion ringing. You know, if you're into that sort of thing. Of course, being a 70-200 at 200 at f2.8, you're going to get decent background separation, but I find that this lens is lacking a little bit of pop that you might get from certain other lenses. For some reason, for me, it just doesn't jump off the screen, the images. So overall for me, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 for image character. Nothing wrong, but it just doesn't make my heart go pitter-pat. Autofocus. That is a strong suit for this lens. And when Sony came out of the gate with this lens, they were pretty proud of it. This has dual direct drive SSM autofocus motors. What does that mean? It means in almost any circumstance, this is just going to kapow, jump right into focus immediately. So when the subject is moving towards you, away from you. Subject jumps right into the frame, out of the frame. This thing will jump all over that. I shot this with an A9 and an A7 Mark II. Generally similar focus performance, although I found it a bit snappier with the A9, especially for highly erratic subjects, say in sports especially. Under like a wedding circumstance, you're not going to get much more out of the A9 with this lens. Things have to be moving pretty fast and unpredictably for that to actually help you much. Even in very low light, this lens performs admirably. I was shooting my son's gymnastics. I was at ISO 12,800. I could not tell any difference really in the autofocus of this between that and broad daylight. The rugby game that I shot, that was actually around ISO 5000 to 6400 as the sun had already set and it was quite dark out. Again, no issues at all. Now, when you get the lights down all the way, say on a dance floor sort of circumstance, you're not going to be using this in that circumstance anyway, but let's say when you get the lights down all the way, when I turned out all the lights in the room, it doesn't behave quite as well as say the 35-1.4. It can't gather that much light, can't open the aperture far enough to grab focus. So anyway, I'm giving the autofocus a 9 out of 10. It's as good as it can be for the most part for a zoom lens. It's great. It's just not the best lens I've ever used. Value. This is where a lot of people complain about this. I'm not going to complain about the value of this lens. Maybe I don't want to spend this much money on it, but it is what it is. First-party lenses, big lenses, they cost a lot of money. So, how much is this? We're looking at $2,600. Whew, that's a bit pricey. When you can get this guy, which is actually pricey for an f4, for $1,500. It's actually shorter. But anyway, moving right along though, you have the new Nikon 70-200 FLED, which is $2,800. It costs more. And the Canon 70-200 Mark III is only $2,100. Now, that lens hasn't been substantially changed in a long time. The latest reissue, they just updated the coatings. So, it's technically not a modern lens. Soon when Canon drops their new R-mount 70-200, you are going to see some astronomical figures. Can't wait to see that. I mean, I'd love to try it. Then you get the third party of vendors. Tamron has a 70-200 2.8, not for Sony yet, soon, for $12.99, and Sigma has a 70-200 2.8 for $1,500. So this is pretty much what we often see with the flagship first-party lenses. They all kind of rack up similarly, and then they cost more than the third-party ones. So is this twice as good as the Tamron 70-200? Twice? Is it twice as sharp? No, it's not. So we don't expect the value to be knocking it out of the park here. It's a 6 out of 10, but that's fine. If you want the best focusing lens for your Sony camera in a 70-200 form, this is what you're going to be reaching for. So overall, that gives us a total of 40 out of 50. It's a pretty strong score, for me at least. So why haven't I bought this lens? Well, as I said before, I'm a prime shooter. I don't like having this much weight on my camera. So occasionally I just rent one of these when I know I'm going to be shooting in a cathedral that is darker than I want to be using this, and I'm not allowed to move past the back row. Yeah, that happens about once a year. So I get Sony to send me one of these, put it on my camera. I don't have to worry too much. I just don't feel like it's worth spending this much money for a lens that really I'm only going to use about once a year. Generally speaking, this guy I only use for outdoor wedding ceremonies. So I'll use that just during the ceremony for about maybe a quarter to a third of my weddings a year, and that's the only time this comes out of my bag. The rest of the time I shoot a ceremony, generally with the 85-1.4 and the 16-35 2.8 on the second body. And that's my take on it. It's a phenomenal lens, it's just not really the lens for me. You know, unless I win the lottery or book 20 weddings in a row. But until then, I'm going to be sending this right back to Sony so someone else can enjoy it a little bit more than I do, which is fine. Now, if this is a lens for you, I've got links down in the description. If it's not, hey, just click next, click subscribe, move on with your day, don't feel bad about it. Not everyone needs one of these things. So, until next time, go take some photos.